Now this is a little tricky as I don't have the luxury of a previously running engine, so we're having to make some assumptions on our timing. I mean, it's probably relatively decent, but probably not optimal here. So we're going to choke it, and then we're going to have to do a combination of tomfoolery here. Oh boy. Shaky hands, boy. Get off the caffeine, son. Howdy my friends, and welcome to the channel today. Long time no see, but it's been winter here in Iowa, and you know, my little frail fingers and whatever just don't like working in the cold weather too much. So today we're doing a little bit of spring cleaning, and this car behind me either needs to live or die. I've pulled it around for years and years. It has a supercharged 302 in it that I got 95% of the way done with and then had to move, and I've never got back to the car. So today, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's either gonna run or it isn't. Either way, it's gonna move from that spot, and it's either gonna leave my property or it's gonna stick around. We'll see. So with that, let's jump in. Give you a little walk around the car. I've owned the car since 2008, and the last time it was on the road was 2015 or so. So it's been a century, or not a century, about a decade. It feels like a century. It's been a decade since it's been on the road. I pulled the engine out and some other things, and I built this engine for it with this blower, and I was 95% of the way done. And in theory, I'm a distributor away from a running engine, but you know, after sitting for 10 years, it's probably not gonna be too good. We'll see what happens. It's kind of a obscure car. You know, back when I was a kid in 2008, this was just a shell of a car when I bought it, but no one cared about a 65 Galaxy, and largely no one does still today. But anyway, roller 302 up front with a blower obviously, and then inside it's become kind of a storage unit over the years. It smells like it's mostly a storage unit for mice. Here's a good tip for you. If you're ever going to park a manual car for a long time, you want to make sure you have that clutch depressed. And so it's got a TKO 500 in it now with 0 miles. Originally it had a T5, but I put this in here and have never driven on it. Big old truck steering wheel, manual steering car, but things like a absolute time capsule. It's got some change down there from the toll roads. Interesting. Oh my God, look at that thing. That is a relic. My old iPod from when I was a kid. I'm sure there's some real bangers on that thing. Graduated high school in 2011. That thing's seen better days. Used to drive this car back in high school. It's kind of weird to... Time flies, my friends. Time really does fly. Now, when I bought this car back in 2008, or rather, should I say, my dad bought his father and son project for me and him, it was just a shell of a car. So we completely rebuilt the frame underneath. It was 37 different colors. The roof was all dented in. Anyway, you know, and we put it all together, had a solid lifter 289 in it with a T5. And it was a fun little car through high school, and I drove it through college. And then when I was in college, someone, I don't know, I made a joke about driving it to my college internship, okay? And everyone said, oh, you'd never make it. That would be stupid and whatever. So 10 years ago, 2015, holy cow. But I drove it all the way to Virginia from Iowa. That's 22 hours one way, 23 hours. And I interned for Amatis Industries down there, and I drove this as my only car all summer, and then drove it the 23 hours home, and even autocrossed it a little bit when I was there. So, you know, I have quite a history with this car, and it's been pretty sad sad. I have a love-hate relationship with this car, okay? But relatively, it's been kind of sad that it's sat for 10 years. But, you know, every car has a story, and that's kind of the backstory of this thing. One ugly son of a gun, too. And it has this big, you know, this was a test hood. Actually, the real hood to the car is right here. If you've been a long-time follower, you know what car that came from. But anyway, you know, I just never got around to finishing it, as you can see. Kind of had a hood scoop that I was trying to figure out, and, you know, you move 10 or 12 times and things just fall by the wayside. So first things first here, I need to get the engine to top dead center before I drop a distributor in. Now, normally that's easy, but this blower has been an absolute nightmare. For one, I can't get on the crank to turn the crank because it has this pulley extension and all this goings on. There is a reason that Holley discontinued these YN blowers. But anyway, all of that aside, I think what I'm going to try and do is we'll take all the plugs out, spray some oil in there because it's been, you know, a millennia since it's cranked over to any capacity. And then I guess we're going to push the car with it in gear and try and roll it into top dead center. Stupid, but it'll probably work. Now, of course, in my younger Luke Infinite Wisdom days, I put a harmonic balancer on here that has a bunch of different timing marks. So in theory, this 0 is the actual 0, which you guys can barely probably see that. I can also barely see it. And so that's probably top dead center, but since I don't have a distributor in there, I can't really turn the crank. I suppose now I need to pull the valve cover just to see cylinder 1 if we are actually on top dead center. So, and of course, in my fancy pants McGee wannabe try hard days, I have T-handles on this thing, or at least the T-handle studs. I do think they look better. Oh, who put a tractor right here? What do you know? Oh boy, I gotta go to the other side, but I think in the glove box I have a handle for those so I can get them off. Going great. I have a love-hate relationship with this car, what can I say? The first 10 years it was mostly love, but these last 10 years it's been mostly hate. I'm hoping to turn that scenario around. Betcha, yep, big old mouse nest. Of course the hinges are sticky now. Oh yeah, good stuff. This is what happens when you let cars sit. Things just kind of have a way of getting ruined. Now I spent a pretty good amount of money building this engine. This is the second engine I built for this car. I actually built one back in college. I had too much money in it, and then I had to sell it for what I had in it, because I had like $50 in my bank account when I was done, and you know, at the time, that wasn't financially responsible. I just really couldn't keep the thing. So I built this engine up later in life, you know, well, later in life, 10 years ago, and then obviously never got it finished off here. When I was a kid, I had some pretty big hot rod dreams, you know. My worldview was really small. I just cared about having fun, radical cam, hot rod cars. And, oh boy, if life doesn't get away from you and just get more and more complex as the years go on. I wasn't screwing around when I built this engine. I got some good stuff in here. It looks like we might be pretty close to TDC. I suppose I'm going to stick a screwdriver in, see if I'm touching the top of the piston, but this looks marginally promising. And obviously what I'm looking for here is neither the intake or the exhaust valve are depressed. Like this one here, cylinder 2 is definitely, it's opening the intake valve there. So, on TDC, when the piston's coming up, these should not be engaging the valves on the compression stroke. And it looks like, we're somewhat close. It's wild to look at the brand new blower here that's never been ran. The seals are absolutely brand new. So I think what I need to do here, if everything isn't seized into oblivion, pushing the clutch, that seems to still work. Put it in, I don't know, 4th gear. And I'm really hoping that the engine actually rotates. After sitting in this humid building with a leaky roof, at least we don't have a seized engine. I was almost hoping so. I could have just walked away and forgot about it. And if you think I'm being overly negative about this car, I've tried being positive about it for years, but this is like a cursed car. If you've ever built a car and some things just barely work when you're putting them together, you just get lucky. That isn't this car, okay? It's like everything that could possibly be difficult when I built the thing always was, as opposed to pretty much every other car I've ever put together. So we're gonna try and talk negative to it and see if it just tries to prove me wrong, because positivity has never worked with it. So I got my oil pump drive tool here. Obviously we want to pump some lubrication through this thing. After 10 years, I'm sure everything's really good and dry. And so basically it's just an old distributor that I knock the gear off of, and then we just chuck it up in a drill and hit it, and it drives the oil pump. But poking around looking for that, I found where this story ended last time. Now this is a progression ignition distributor, and this is why I got frustrated and walked away. When I installed this thing, it went almost all the way down to where it was seated, like it's supposed to be, but it had like maybe 10 or 20 thousandths clearance with the block. And so if I were to try and bolt that down, there's no play in the shaft, and it would have quickly fried the oil pump. So I'm not sure what's wrong with this progression unit. I've tried to put it in other engines just to compare, and it just will not seat all the way down in any engine. It's almost like this receiver is under machined, and you can even see it's like when it was being machined, it's like the tool broke. Let's just pull this out of here and let me guess. All right. I bet you this big body of this thing is not going to dodge the blower, because everything is just like that. Trying to do this with one hand here. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. See how everything just tries to fight you on this car? All right. If we turn this, we're just engaging with the oil pump, so we should be able to prime all that, and we should see oil come up from our rockers, Lord willing. So that's good enough for me. I got oil coming up to every rocker, so that's what we want to see, I think. So now the conundrum of what do I do actually for a distributor? I forgot until I picked this thing up, then I kind of remembered all the trials and tribulations. So time to get creative, I think. So against my better judgment, because for this car I need a distributor that's probably capable of boost timing retard. Can you say that anymore? Not sure. But I think just to fire this off, I think I'm going to steal the distributor out of the F100. It's a Pertronix Igniter 3. Should go in. We can limit the timing quite a bit. This definitely feels wrong, because it is wrong. We're going to take apart a perfectly good running vehicle to try and get a vehicle that, has spited me my entire life to try and run. Meanwhile, this has like been the most reliable vehicle I've ever had. So we got everything marked here on our distributor, so we can put it back in when our Galaxy inevitably doesn't start. We can take our handy dandy 8/16 wrench, and there's a funny story behind that, and just for clarity, I got 12.7 millimeter on the backside in case the 8/16 was confusing. And so we're gonna just loosen up our distributor hold down bolt. Might be easier said than done. It's been in there for a long time. All right. I think this move is called the robbing Peter to pay Paul. All right. Classic Ford things. Look at that guy, a Pertronix Igniter 3. I think I've had this since 2012 or so. I've logged, 60 or 80,000 miles somewhere in there. You can see that I had to do a little roadside repair because the ground strap actually broke on the advance mechanism there. So, pretty solid unit. Don't sleep on Pertronix stuff. It's good. If you wire them correctly, they will last forever. And this one is a perfect example of just such things. All right, it probably makes good sense to puke a little bit of assembly lube on here, just so everything plays nice. Oh, maybe I should look at what I'm doing and not the camera. All right. Now, true to my nature, I'm not a big fan of not understanding why something doesn't work and why something else does. Now, I have my theories here, but theories are just theories, and I like to work in facts. And so we have our little caliper here. We're gonna get a depth measurement and check that against our progression distributor, which doesn't seem to want to seat, against our Pertronix, which does seat. So I have a rudimentary depth measurement here, and I've locked in our caliper, but basically it's where the gear sits on that little plateau, and you can see where the oil pump drive shaft, I'm kind of pointing at it right there. But if we don't have play, basically you're going to be jamming the distributor together, and you're just going to shred something and send a bunch of metal throughout the engine. So I got this locked in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just compare it to the progression. So one thing I noticed is the progression has this little thrust washer here where the Pertronix does not, and the depth is different between the two. So coming in here, and oh, would you look at that? It doesn't quite fit, and it is just barely. And this shaft is pushed all the way in here, and so that explains why I was hanging up maybe by 10 thousandths or so. So that would cause a problem. You want play, or you want there to at least be able to be play in that shaft. So coming over here to our Pertronix, and there's plenty of clearance there. So that's probably what was going on. I thought this looked a little weird with the machining, but that doesn't seem to be it. I think it's a depth relationship, and I think, even though the thrust washer is a really good idea, basically that would push all of this together super hard in the engine and essentially shred the distributor, and it's going to send metal everywhere is what it's going to do. It's supposed to be able to float. So I think we've solved the mystery on the progression ignition distributor, why it doesn't seat. And I will tell you, I've taken this and put it in another engine and it seated just fine. So it seems like, there's a lot of machining and tolerances going on here, but that's something to be aware of. If you have any distributor, you want to check that. If it's not going to seat, it's really bad. You're just going to destroy something, and it's totally not worth it. So now I'm going to try and stab this old ratty distributor in here on the cap. This is where cylinder 1 is. Now it has this helical gear, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, it's the distributor cap and rotor here, or the rotor is going to try and move when it engages with the cam. So we're going to try and drop it in a little preset, and I'm sure the oil pump will fight us. So we could get lucky here. I'm going to cross my fingers and my nuts and just hope. Twisted a nut once. It's not a good time. Don't know why I just said that on camera. Anyway. All right. And there we go. She's seated. You saw how that cap rotated in. It's lined up with the body here, so it's a reasonably good starting point. And since we're in the business of stealing parts off cars, as much as I want to put this nasty old, I mean, look at this thing, this nasty old cap and wires, I think this is like literally a Bakelite, I don't care. Bakelite sounds better, so that's what I'm going to say. Bakelite cap. I mean, it's like from 13, 14 years ago. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to go steal one that I know is going to hook on and not look so ugly, at least for the time being. Ah yes, if you've watched my channel for at least since last year, you probably remember this bad boy. Now I got the engine all set up and running good for my good friend John, and then I just stored it for him for the winter because I had room and it was just easier for him to do that. But he's coming to pick it up sometime in the next week, and so I better not screw these up too bad. But originally I stole these from the 65 for this because I just wanted to do it as well as I could for him. But today we're going to temporarily steal them back. And there's some nice cut to length plug wires, you know. This really looks good when you kind of lay them out like such. Makes an engine look a lot beefier. Looks like I forgot to feed these guys. Oh boy. This hurts me to do. They're both Pertronix Igniter 3 distributors. This is definitely a Luke favorite unit because of how tunable they are. Obviously we have another one over there and all around here, but I think that'll do its job. All right, back to our regularly scheduled tomfoolery here. Now, this engine is obviously quite a bit different than what was in the F100. And so, because Pertronix is very friendly about a wealth of adjustment capability, it looks like, now these are labeled 10. I don't love that they did that, but basically this means they're both 10. This means that you have 20 degrees of mechanical advance allowed in this distributor. If you have none under the hood here, I think it's 24 degrees. But on a supercharged engine, that's going to be too much with initial timing. Basically with the blower and everything, you're not going to want to run as much total timing. Now this is all based off of cylinder pressure and flame propagation and burn time. Higher compression engines, more cylinder pressure, you know, look over here, high compression, a blower, that's going to be higher cylinder pressure. That flame front is much faster, so you don't need as much timing to ignite the mixture at the right time in the cylinder stroke. And on the other hand, that's why it always seems like if you have a low compression engine, it likes a lot of timing. A lot being like maybe even 40 degrees of total timing if it's some stock late 70s and early 80s engine. And so that's kind of the methodology. People are always asking, what timing should I run? Well, it's pretty darn engine dependent, but it's a safe assumption that the cylinder pressure is pretty high here, and so we're going to want to limit that total timing right off the bat to be safe. Unless I want to make, you know, send the blower up over the top of the car, which I don't. All right, and there we go. Kind of hokey little things, but basically when the weight comes out and the mechanical advance starts to rotate, they just catch it and limit how much it can rotate. So you don't want to mix and match them, like I said. You know, they come as a set. They need to be installed as a set. But anyway, this should be good where we're not going to run way too much mechanical timing and send the blower to the moon. And that would probably be the first time we've ever put anything on the moon. Oh boy, conspiracy theories. All right, back on she goes. And you might say, well, the truck you took it off of, this cap, was a 351 Windsor. But when I built this engine, obviously it has an aftermarket roller camshaft in it, an XE266HR. Anyway, totally beside the point, but it has a 351 Windsor firing order. So these plugs should line up perfect, and that's how I was able to originally remove it from this vehicle for that, and now we're just putting it back on. Seems redundant at this point. And it's kind of starting to look like an engine again, if I do say so myself. Of course I'm saying so myself. There's no one else here, and I'm standing here talking to a camera, which I haven't done for like 6 months, so gotta get used to talking to myself again. So I'm a weird guy, so shouldn't be too hard. All right, somewhere around here I have a carburetor that I set up specifically for this engine, and we'll get on to why it's specifically set up for it in a minute. Props to you if you know what I'm talking about. It is a Holley, so good thing I only have a few of those to go through. All right, I have found it. What in the world is that? Oh, 2 of them. I have found it, I do believe. Maybe. It's a heavy, it's a good classic style zinc Holley. It is a 600 double pumper, and in reference to the blower, I'm going to give you another hint. We have this going right into the chamber for the power valve on the primary metering block here, and there is not a secondary power valve. Just a theory, but it's probably not going to work too good unless I get some gaskets here. Oh, now if I can find where I keep those at. All right, I did find the gaskets, and check out some of these other oddities from over the winter. We machined up a 2 to 4 barrel spacer instead of an open spacer. Now we made a dual plane unit, and it works exceptionally well. I love the bear looking one, but check this bad boy out. This is the biggest 350 Chevy oil filter I've ever seen. Now it doesn't have a drain back valve, but that's beside the point. Brought to you straight from China. I don't know what in the world. Is that a GM logo on it too? Oh, of course it is. So if you guessed that this is a boost referenced power valve, you would be correct. I got this hose that's plumbed here, and it would thread onto here, and basically the reason you have to do that with a blower is that if the power valve was located here above the blower, that's always going to have vacuum, so it's never going to get into the enrichment circuit. So this is kind of a problem with when you see Edelbrock's on a blower. You either are running way lean, or you have to jet up your primary to accommodate the hard throttle scenarios, where the Holley, you can boost reference the power valve and you're good to go. But I did this 10 years ago, and one thing that I have discovered, as is tradition with every Holley, the accelerator pumps and probably the power valve itself is entirely petrified. See that? It's just compressing the spring. So I guess we're on to option 2. So this is pretty par for the course for this old 65. I just don't have a rebuild kit. I just used the last one on some guy's carburetor I was helping out, and so if I want to get this done today, I'll have to get creative. And I've been doing some thinking, or drinking and thinking, and I thought, what around here has a carburetor that can work? So I started looking around, and I thought, I don't need you until at least next week. There's even a spare carb there. So I pondered the idea. This is kind of an interesting unit. I could have stolen this guy, and I'm like, good grief. You know what worked last time I was in a predicament like this? Is one of these bad boys. Oh God. This engine is long since seized and blown, but I know what we can do with that. Now, I used to do a lot of 3D printing back in the day with an old Ender 3, and those were pretty slow, but now they have these Bamboo Lab guys, and I pulled something out of the ether, and I kind of adapted a new air filter to it, and I thought, heck, let's do it. See if a lawnmower carburetor can run a blown engine. It's going to be blown one way or another, I'm sure, when we're done. I should probably quit and go inside right now, but I just want to see what happens. Oh boy, it looks so stupid. It almost looks good. I hate to say it. So now I have to get creative and figure out how to make the throttle work correctly, because this is kind of got a lawnmower throttle back here, and got to find a way to kind of brace the cable so it actually actuates the throttle. Do you have any good ideas? Oh, that's a great idea. I also forgot that in my infinite wisdom, I never checked if the battery was charged, which I haven't charged it in at least 3 years, so I'm sure it isn't. Yeah, that's probably important. Surprise, surprise. 6 volts. That would be perfect for you, or well, I converted that to 12 volt and that. But in theory, you know. That's what you call a bracket. Hammer fell on my foot, but I didn't feel it, so we're all good. And that is how she's done, right there. Oh boy, this is exceedingly stupid, but I have to say, I am enjoying myself quite a bit. This wasn't supposed to be a Thunderhead 289 unhinged video, but this car will do this to you. So both of the previous owners are dead before me. One of them died of cancer, and the guy before that, he died while he was sanding the car down in his garage. So it's a cursed car, I guess. I don't know why that's relevant, but my friends, we do not need a hood. Oh God. The heaviest hoods there ever was. Little trick to getting these springs off here. Now that's what I'm talking about. We can really see what we're working with now. Probably should have done that from the very beginning. But, you know, decisions, I suppose. So anyway, I got to rig up some sort of a fuel system here. I'm sure the fuel pump out back is completely clapped at this point. And yeah, I'll probably regret everything I just did in the morning. But for now, boy, I tell you what, I like it. All right, my friends, I think I'm going to call it quits for tonight. I'm super bummed I didn't think about the battery sooner, and I loaned out my jump pack, so I also don't have that. And this is a post battery and yada yada. Anyway, you guys don't need to know, but I don't have another battery for it at the moment, so this is going to have to work. So tomorrow, hopefully this battery is charged up, and I'll come back out here and see how much I hate the me that is right now at what I just did. I'm sure it'll be exceedingly. So anything I said just makes sense. I'm not even sure, but I got a fuel pump to rig up here tonight. This is probably the wrong time to do it, but I don't know. Can you really screw up rigging up a fuel pump? You definitely can, but I don't know. I think I know what I'm doing, kinda. Oh boy, why'd you guys let me do this? Oh, well, I can't say if I was given the same opportunity twice, I would have done the same thing, but here we are. So, I was really hoping the battery wouldn't be charged, but it is, unfortunately. So before I get too much farther, now that I'm in my right frame of mind, as right as I can be, I'm gonna try and just roll the engine over. So I need to find the keys and just see if this thing is gonna be locked or doing anything weird, because it sat in this humid building for a super long time. And if you know anything about building engines, or you've built engines before, you really don't want a fresh engine to sit around. Old engines, they get kind of caramelized with oil. Fresh engines like this one, you know, they're pretty bare inside, and they have a tendency to want to rust and have issues. So, you know, not great. They're planting corn, I see, so that'll be nice. I always like kind of the aesthetic of corn around my property as opposed to beans. They kind of do it on a rotation, but we're doing corn this year, so that's good. All right, I found the keys here, and you can tell that this car was used and abused in its prime. Look at how wore out that key is. Also, was changing over. You can see I was really uncreative in the beginning, and so then I kind of changed up the logo, so changing some of the bodies over, but I thought, use some of the parts and pieces here from an assembly and basically have myself a little starter button so I can, you know, stand in the engine bay and get hit with the blower when it explodes, more than likely, but you know, that's fine. It's kind of funny that I slowly built this car and then I proceeded to unbuild this car, not having any reference for the slightest thing when I would just steal stuff. So I'm sure I stole that for a different vehicle. Makes good sense. And I'll be danged if that old battery isn't maintaining some decent voltage. So I suppose, so we're basically gonna bypass the key the first time here because I want to have a good look at what's going on. Not like I can see through the windshield at the moment. So, and I don't necessarily want the ignition on. So I think we're good to go. And I should probably make sure it isn't in gear. That would have been exciting. Ruining one of my high school cars with my other high school car. Oh, I think that's in neutral. All right, where did it go? This is the first time ever spinning this engine over under power. And from all the moisture, what do you know? The starter Bindex is not going out. I might have lucked out here. It might be just because the battery is pretty weak. Check it out when we roll it over. I mean, we're losing all of our voltage. Normally you see a battery drop down to like 11 or 10, 9 maybe. But going down to 5 volts, I don't think the Bindex is actually spinning fast enough for the centrifugal force to throw it into the flywheel. So, oh boy, it looks like the curse of the 65 Galaxy is coming back to haunt me yet again. So this was a newer starter that I put in here, I don't know, 2015 or so. And yeah, anyway, I got 2 batteries on this thing, and it will not throw the Bindex out for Bindex, whatever, out for nothing. 2 batteries on here, the exact same. So the good news is that battery is probably good. The bad news is the starter is not having a good day, just bypassing everything, just in case, you know, this is corroded up. And did I just smoke the starter? What do we got going on here? So, not good. And it has long tube headers that you have to unbolt to be able to get the starter out. So, you know, all good things. Exactly what you want to have happen. And there is absolutely a ton of cobwebbery under here and mouse poop, and boy, why did you have to be like that? Now normally I'm into just doing it live where I won't use a jack stand, but I know this car, if given the chance, it'll definitely try and kill me. Check out that guy. You know, that would go right through my sternum and feel great. Do I want to risk crawling under this thing? I suppose so. We've come this far, might as well keep on going. I think Forrest Gump said that. I feel about as stupid as he does right now. Forgot I got a nice QuickTime bell housing in here, and it looks like this is a mini starter. I don't know how well you can see it. Maybe I can shed some light on this predicament. So obviously the moisture has gotten to it. Header wrap is really good about holding in the moisture, all good stuff. So I'm gonna try and snake this mini starter. I know a full-size starter will not fit without removing these particular headers, but maybe this one will. All right, managed to fish that out without removing the headers, although, you know, pretty much destroyed my header wrap. But one of the things I learned in seminary school is that header wrap is of the devil. So no love lost there. Oh boy, I don't know if I can get out of here without puncturing my spleen. So I got this thing jumpered here right to a battery, and as you can see, exactly what we thought was happening is still happening. The Bendix or whatever it's called, it's Bendix, it still is Dix, is not coming out. He's shy. Anyway, okay, I need to go home. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try and lubricate the living. All right, we're done with this clip. Now I know there's a little thrower in this body here, and I mean, I got the starter lubed up and spun up where it seems pretty free, but what I'm wondering is if I got something going on here. I know it ran before, and I had it wired to this lug, and this was bypassed by the starter solenoid, or at least I cranked the engine before. So I know that for a fact. Unfortunately, that was wishful thinking. So right when I pulled this off, how I had it wired didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I thought, well, I know it cranked the previous engine, so it probably works. And I think I rolled this engine over at one time, like 10 years ago. And so, you know, I kind of was just going off how I wired it, but it turns out I had a task failed successfully moment 10 years ago back in 2015. And so let me just show you here, is I think I figured out why this probably worked before and why it didn't work today. Aside from being pretty sticky, I think I also was just doing something dumb all those years ago. At some point, you know, I wanted to retain the fender mounted starter solenoid, so I bypassed, or I thought I had bypassed this guy, but it does more than one would think, which it's funny, what I did under there by accident actually made it work. Now this solenoid does control the little thrower that initially tosses out the Bendix, whatever. And anyway, I had just hooked up to this lug to bypass this whole thing. I was just thinking of it as a coil. You know, I don't know. I wasn't using my brain, and my cable was actually making contact with this post. So ironically, you know, task failed successfully, it worked. But over time, sitting here in this humid building, basically it had lost continuity with this post and was just, you know, not powering that. So let me wire this up here. I'll just make connection to both of these and then ground it, and you'll see it'll throw it out like normal. Now I need to clean up the connections here because they are super corroded, but as you can see, oh, interesting. So, moral of the story is, if something worked before or seems to work, it doesn't necessarily mean it was right. So, kind of an interesting deal there. So I'm just going to jumper that post over to this one, and I think we should be okay after that. So I sanded down the faces of all these nuts. Oh boy. Anyway, and I jumpered the trigger wire to the main lead that I'm using over there on the 65. All right, so that was quite the little adventure. I think now we will see if it turns over. I'm not even gonna look at it. We're just gonna hit it. Well, at least it's engaging the flywheel. Oh, this battery probably is junk. I stole this from my wife's car, so we're gonna activate the please turn over 9000, and if the engine isn't stuck somewhere, which wouldn't be at all surprised. Holy crap, that's the first time I've ever seen that blower spin. You guys just saw it with me. Cool. We are getting somewhere, finally. There is no exhaust under this car. It is pure open headers, so that'll probably be an experience. It is time for fuel to our little lawnmower carburetor, which if I was doing this today, I wouldn't have done, but it's already there, so let's just see what happens. Now I was in the middle of working on this bad boy. I got it for essentially nothing, and anyway, I'm sure you guys will see it eventually, but I'm going to steal my temporary gas tank that's questionable at best, but it's got a nice little bottom sump so we can feed an electric pump sufficiently and then pump fuel up to our lawnmower carb. This all feels stupid saying out loud, but that's what we're gonna do. So we got a lot of dumb stuff going on. We have our auxiliary fuel system going on over here. So from tank to electric little vane pump, and then that's gonna be hooked to our battery here. And then also, because our battery here is bad, and I don't wanna try and run the ignition off of a weak battery and burn up the ignition module, we have both of the batteries jumpered together. So makes a lot of sense. I got the multimeter here as I need to figure out when I turn the key on if it does actually have power, because you know the mice have really gotten to this thing at this point. But I think I'll prime our fuel system here, and this is regulated down to 2 or 3 psi, and it needs to be regulated down a little bit more probably, or the gauge is wrong, but we'll see here. We'll just shut that off for now, so at least I know the bowl is more than likely full. Multimeter is hooked up, so hopefully this rains on my parade. I'll just jumper it to the battery, but see what comes on. Oh, and I wired everything so it lights up all the time. Seems like a young Luke thing to do. All right, so hopefully we have voltage. That would be nice. And we do. So technically ignition's hot, and in theory, if I roll this over, it should start. All right, turn the choke on here, and we'll just hit it. I got shaky hands. Apparently I care more than I thought I did, so here we go. tell you what. I am gonna put something over my face so when this blows up, you know, I can't get any uglier, but I'd prefer not to if I can help it. Holy cow, it actually ran. Now this is a little tricky as I don't have the luxury of a previously running engine, so we're having to make some assumptions on our timing. I mean, it's probably relatively decent, but probably not optimal here. So we're going to choke it, and then we're going to have to do a combination of tomfoolery here. Let's try no choke. And the lawnmower carb is probably already out of fuel. Oh my God, it sounds good. Oh boy. Shaky hands, boy. Get off the caffeine, son. All right, I'm gonna try it with the carb running on a continuum. If it blew up, I didn't want to have a massive fireball. So a little bit of confidence this time. Do I have the key on? Oh, that probably makes a difference. Just on the off chance, so it doesn't land on top of my head. All right, now I feel good and safe. Oh boy, I shut it down because I thought that, have I ever checked if there's any coolant in this thing? So got less than a minute of very exciting runtime and not a lot. That is why we did not run that for too long. So we'll get some coolant here and I think we can get a decent run in the thing. Boy, good oil pressure. It's smoking all the oil and moisture off the headers because header wrap just loves to hold moisture, but that is something else. And the coolant didn't seem to be in the oil. There's a good chance that when I did the front end, the upper radiator hose and the blower, I just never filled it because I never got this far. And anyway, get in there. Not all that low, but obviously we didn't want to run for too long like that. All right, here we go again. Look what it's doing to my vacuum line. Camera probably doesn't even pick it up because it's so dang loud, but that is one mean sounding son of a gun. Seems like a good time to get a timing light on it. shut the fuel off there a second ago, but I think that's going to do it. I'm surprised, and I'm also not surprised at the very same time. All right, my friends, I'd love to continue, but my wife's on her way home, and I really need to go spread the manure in the horse pasture because she asked me to do that when she was gone, and I haven't done that yet. I didn't plan on doing all this, but a little bit of liquid courage or something, liquid stupidity, and here we are. So if you want to see me try and actually drive this thing with the lawnmower carb and rig everything up, I'm sure it'll probably go down the road. Risky, but it'll probably work. If you want to see that, otherwise I'm just going to put the 600 double pumper on here and just blow the tires off the thing and have a good time. But I'm probably just as intrigued as you guys are to see what that can do. So, you know, a normal 302 that it ran on versus the supercharged goings on. Yeah, what a trip. I'm amazed it didn't just suck that carburetor right down in there and blow the whole thing up. So I don't know, might in the future, but here we are. So let me know what you think. And yeah, I got some manure to go spread. I'll see you guys around.